guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video, and today I'm reviewing a book, okay? It's a book that I literally just finished, and it was one of my most anticipated releases, I think, of this whole year, and that is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is set in 1840s Mexico, and we follow Nena and Nestor. Nestor is a farmhand working for Nena's father, who is the ranch owner. One day, something attacks Nena, something very disturbing, and Nestor, thinking that she's been killed in the attack, runs from the ranch and is basically now, 9 years later, working as a vagabond ranch hand, going from place to place, just trying to get over his grief. And essentially what happens is tensions that had been already brewing between the Mexicans and the Americans in the events leading up to the eventual Mexican-American War have now spilled over, and let's just say that the Yankees are not the only things that Nestor and Nena need to worry about. So the trigger warnings for this book are war, gore, blood, death, and then mentions of a death of a loved one. This book I've heard a lot of people call genre bending, and you know, it mixes elements of historical fiction, romance, horror, and a little bit of Western as well. Okay, so this is going to be my spoiler-free review for Vampires of El Norte. I hope that you enjoy. Let me know whether or not you guys have read this book, whether you liked it, whether you've read The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I really want to read that next. And also, if you guys could do me a really big favor, if you guys could go down to the description box below and look at all of the links there that I have for you guys. They all pertain to stuff going on in the world right now. And yeah, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so the first pro that I have is the prose, okay? The writing itself is so easy to get sucked into, at least for me it was. Like, the action scenes are written so fast, and the romance scenes are written so, just with so much tension, and there are so many great quotes in here, one of them being on page 151. He was a man of dust who served men of silver. It was impossible not to know his place in the world. That's Nestor pretty much always talking about how he's a man of dust, how he is a worker underneath the señores who essentially run him. And, you know, we get a little bit of his coming to terms with wanting to break out of that mold. I just love the writing in here. It's so delectable. It's easy to get into. It's easy to get sucked into. It's just really good. Next, the atmosphere, okay? The atmosphere that this book sets is phenomenal. It's set in the heat, and it's also set during a war. The writing in this book is so immersive to where you can physically feel the sweat on your forehead, the sun beating down on your scalp and your shoulders. You can physically smell the gunpowder and the blood in the air. You can genuinely feel like you are on this ranch with the smell of horses. You feel like you're there on the front lines with the Mexican cavalry. Since this book is set in Mexico, you know, you would expect some Spanish phrases and words, and we get them. I have to say that I think my favorite part about the whole atmosphere of this book is the inclusion of the historical events themselves. Because, like I said in the synopsis, this is set during 1840s Mexico, okay? Specifically 1846 Mexico. So this is set during or around the time where the Mexican-American War officially starts. And we are first-hand spectators of a very significant battle in this book. She wanted to say hi. Hey everybody, this is Charlotte.
What the fuck is going on in here on this day?
Okay, baby. It set the scene, you know what I mean? It set the scene for what you would hope to be a really great novel about regular people in amongst this historical event. Now, another one of the pros that I have, okay, is the romance. Okay, I did really enjoy the romance. Nestor and Nena, okay, are our two love interests. Nestor, my man is down bad, okay? If Nena told him to lick the ground, he would. Nestor, in regards to Nena, is a how high type of man, not a why am I jumping type of man. For example, on page 190, girl, he is like looking at Nena and just watching her do her thing. And he says in his inner monologue, it was intoxicating how much he wanted her to trust him, to relax around him, to smile as she used to when they were children. broad and unguarded and sweetly dimpled, her teeth flashing like a loaded pistol in the sun. He would happily be shot dead by it any day of the week. Girl, if he wanted to be shot by your smile, dead, he would. He would. If he wanted to, he would. Besides that, the conversations that they both have in here are very real and they're very raw. And yes, I did get annoyed every now and then, you know, because I'd be like, okay, y'all, come on, this is a little, are we really, you know, talking about this? But at the same time, you know, they are getting over the problems that they have with one another because, like I said in the synopsis, Nestor left. So obviously Nana's hurt because she doesn't know why he left and he doesn't know that she's alive. Okay, so, you know, they obviously have to get over that hurdle and a bunch of other hurdles, you know, with their social classes, and that comes into play with how they're, you know, trying to navigate their romance. The conversations that they had, I really, really liked, okay? They were flawed, they were angry, they were very emotional, but at the same time, you know, they're human. So it was very real. And also, okay, y'all know me, I eat a bodyguard romance up. I will clean the plate with that bitch, okay? And Vampires of El Norte, even though it's not all the way a bodyguard romance, we have a little bit. I'm a simple woman, okay? I see bodyguard romance, I turn piece of paper. Next, we have the horror aspect, okay? Because like I said in the synopsis, we're blending the genres of historical fiction and romance and horror and a little bit of Western, you know what I mean? And there are vampires in this book. And, you know, I don't think that's a spoiler, okay? Because, but not to get spoilery, okay? The vampires in this book have a really original take on them, you know, like how they're characterized and, you know, how they act, and there are some very insidious details surrounding these like Vampires of El Norte vampires. I love it when people can take an idea that has been done so many times in so many different ways and make it their own, and are able to take something as iconic as vampires and make it something that we've never seen before. I love that. Now, unfortunately, I do have some cons with this book, and also unfortunately they branch off of some of the prose that I have with this book. Okay, so the first con that I have is also with the romance aspect. Okay, so the romance aspect part 2. Look, as much as I loved Nana and Nestor's relationship and romance, it got a little repetitive. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Some of those conversations that, you know, I said and praised to be real and raw, yes, they are. But at the same time, I feel like we've talked about these real and raw subjects between the two of y'all at least 5 different times. Like some of the things that, or like the problems that they were talking about with one another, I was kind of just sitting there thinking to myself, really? We're on this again? So that was a little grating. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm sitting over here thinking, okay, I thought we were supposed to be hauling ass from the literal vampires and then the figurative vampires, also known as Yankees. Why are we walking in circles with these conversations about romance? Okay, I'm pretty sure we can do this on horseback. The other con that I have with this book is also, unfortunately, with the horror aspect. While I did like it a lot, I wish that there had been more of it, simply put. I feel like the elements of the horror genre that were trying to be blended into this book, you know, pertaining to the vampires and everything other, I feel like they were overtaken by the romance quite a lot. Which leads me to say that I think this book is being mismarketed in some areas, okay? Personally, I would not market this book as a historical horror with a side of romance. I would market this book as a historical romance with a side of horror. It's still a historical fiction novel, of course, and, you know, it's still got horror in it, but I would say the romance takes up more space than the horror aspect does, which isn't bad. It's just, you know, I was expecting Vampires of El Norte, not Love of El Norte, you know what I mean? And I think the lack of that horror element that I was so hoping for is emphasized by just how repetitive some of Nena's and Nestor's romance gets. And while I did love this book, I have to say I think that's a real shame, because I think that, you know, if it had been more equal, if more time had been given to a balance between the horror and the romance genres in this book, I think that this book would have been 5 stars for me. That being said, I gave this book, Vampires of El Norte, 4 stars. I loved this book, okay? Dare I say, fans of Inuyasha might like this, okay? But also, this is just a new favorite vampire novel of mine. I love the setting of it. However, I would say that if you are going into this book looking specifically for vampire literature, maybe be mindful that this is probably not going to have the amount of vampiricness that you're looking for, but I still think it's a really good book. It's really engaging, it's really fast-paced, the writing in it is beautiful, and I really did enjoy the genre bending that was in here, okay? The historical fiction aspects, the horror aspects, the romance aspect, I think it all did a phenomenal job. Maybe it could have been done better, but the job that was done was damn phenomenal. So you guys, that was my spoiler-free review for Vampires of El Norte. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you'll pick this book up, okay, because I loved it. It was so much fun. I did think, you know, in some areas that it was lacking a little bit, but otherwise, overall, I would say I'm not let down in the slightest. So you guys, with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you continue to look out for more stuff on my channel in the future. I hope that you're staying safe. And lastly, I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.